Welcome, welcome, welcome. Episode number 5, Towing the Line podcast. You heard it here first. Yeah, big week in Melbourne. Big week mentally too, for myself personally. Obviously, we are back in lockdown, 5 days, it's probably going to be longer than 5 days. If you look at the cases that have been coming out, which is annoying, but there is no point complaining about it, which sucks that it's come to this point because, I'm sure if you're in Melbourne, you get exactly what I'm talking about. You complain, you get stressed, you get annoyed about it, you get frustrated, but it doesn't achieve anything because there's nothing you can fucking do, which is a very annoying feeling to have. But there is nothing you can do about it. So you just got to suck it up and try and do what you can. You got to try and still tick those boxes. You got to try and just, stay on top of things and make the best of a bad situation and just hope that, this shit doesn't last forever. So I really hope we do come out after 5 days. But if the cases keep going the way they're going, then it's not looking good, which is annoying. But yeah, like I said, there's no point complaining about it, which is the fucking worst because complaining usually helps. But in this case, you complain and it just, nothing gets done, nothing changes, and we are still locked away. Anyway, moving on. So this week, training-wise, was a big week on the trainer indoors, which, don't get me wrong, I like the trainer. It's great. It has its moments, It's a good way to fuck the legs up in a short amount of time. But I think I spent 4 out of the 5 days during the week sitting on the trainer. And it was not a lot of fun knowing that I had to jump on that thing nearly every day. But we got through it. And then we had a 4-hour ride yesterday, which... yesterday was probably one of the hardest days mentally for me I've had in a very long time. This week's been a big week, personal side of things. And, yesterday I woke up and I was just fucking exhausted. I was supposed to start at 5:36 and just get a jump on the day before it started raining. But I woke up and I was like, nope, this is not going to happen right now. Went back to sleep. Got up, started at 7:30, and I was just I did not want to be there. I couldn't think of anything worse than riding my bike outside. I almost did it on the trainer, but then I was like, nah, I can't be on the trainer again this week. I'm sick of it. So I opted to go outside, and I ended up thankfully meeting up with James and Das. We rode some hills locally, and I can tell you, it took me probably over 2.5 hours to actually feel like I wanted to be there and wanted to be out there riding. It was fucking rough. I just remember my seat post kept slipping down, and it slipped down on 2 occasions. First time it slipped down, I was like, oh, this is annoying. Fuck, I'll stop. I had the tools to pull it back up, and I was like, great, okay, this is good now. And then it slipped down again, and when it slipped down that second time, I was like, fuck this. I'm just going to go back to my car and pack it in, I'll be happy with just over 2 hours. I'm done. Today's just, wasn't meant to be. But I said that I was going to go back to my car, and both the boys were like, nah, just fix it one more time. And then if it fucks up again, go back to your car. And I fixed it, tightened it, didn't fuck up again. And it actually ended up being a really good ride. So I'm so glad that I was riding with those boys because I probably would have packed it in. It's I know those days when they come, I've experienced them before. I know that I'll feel better on the other side of it, but it's the worst. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that have the same feeling. When you have a day that's, you just feel, you're not on, you feel like shit, your legs are heavy, you can't be fucked. It was cold, it was drizzling, it was not great conditions. And let me tell you, the hills we were hitting were fucked up too. So, and they're two light boys. I'm a heavy boy, so it was not fun going up some of those hills. But I feel fantastic after doing it, and I know that I'm going to get to that feeling. I've just got to tough it out. And I guess experiencing situations like that, putting yourself in a position like that, always I guess I know I'm always going to feel better after it. So I know I've just got to grit my teeth and get through it. And then afterwards, I'll feel great. So experience always pays off in situations like that. So yeah, I don't know if I would have finished my 4 hours if I had gone back to my car to try and fix my bike, but I am glad it didn't come to that. And I'm glad those boys pulled me through and we finished a killer ride. Didn't really get rained on that much. We managed to just avoid where it was raining because we would happen to ride through, when the ground was soaked and there was no rain. So we got pretty lucky with that. And then we stopped and had a bit of a coffee and a little snack after about 3.5 hours. And then I just cruised back to my car and packed up, and that was it. So it was a good sesh. And then this morning, met up with James. I was supposed to run 13 Ks, which was about an hour 10, and he was running 90 minutes. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just jump in with him. He didn't tell me where we were going to run. And then we ended up doing 400, just over 400 meters of elevation in 15 Ks. Our average pace was like 6 minutes per K, because it was just fucking hills, which was wonderful. And they were another good mental test. Some of the hills were so fucking steep, I shit you not, that you would get to the right at the top and it would just kick, and then it felt like I almost physically couldn't run anymore. Like I was probably running the same pace as I would have if I was walking. And mentally, when those thoughts start, probably you're like, I may as well just fucking walk because I'm basically walking down. That's when it gets real hard. So it's always, I made the discovery today. I think we hit like 5 or 6 fucking ripper hills. The last 10% of the hill is where it sucks. So before then, it's like you're just buying in, and then as soon as you get to that right at the top of the hill, that's where it's like, nah, this is where it's all. You're gonna feel it all. You feel the entire hill in the last 10%, and then you get over the top, and your lungs are burning, and you're tasting blood, and then you just recover on the way down, and then you go back up, and that's it's a bit like life, really, running and riding hills. Fucking you hit the bottom, and then you struggle until you get to the top, and then you get to the top, and you get to enjoy it for a bit on the way down. But then, you get to the bottom of the hill and you got to go back up. So, fun times. But that's why they're good training for life. Putting yourself in challenging situations like running hills and training for events and all sorts of shit. So, if you're going to do anything this lockdown to try and, keep yourself sane, get out there and, do something that challenges yourself. Whether it's physically, mentally, just get outside, please, because being outside in nature, in the sunlight, just being outside is fucking way better than sitting inside being all sad. So if you can get outside, do it. It's going to benefit you in ways that you cannot fucking imagine. All right. What else happened this week that was interesting? I got a wonderful quote. So last week I touched on listening to a podcast with, I think it was Andrew Pollan or something, with Joe Rogan, about plants and how phenomenal they are. And I actually got sent a quote that is, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And I was like, that is so fucking true. Nature, being plants and animals and stuff, has been around since before you can even fucking imagine. It's been around forever. That's where we came from. We evolved from nature. And if you look at like the animal kingdom or like plants, trees and stuff like that, they've evolved in certain ways to adapt to their environments. They haven't done that quickly. They've done that over time. And it's just like, it's insane. They don't rush. And obviously there's a lot of trial and error, being like, for example, I'm trying to think of an animal that has a defense mechanism, like probably the echidna, for example. I'm sure there was a lot of trial and error, being them getting fucking brutally attacked by different predators and stuff like that. And eventually they got to the point where they were like, nah, these spikes seem to do the trick. These are good. Let's run with this. Or like poisonous plants, for example, like mushrooms. Like I think I mentioned this as an example last week. The like mushrooms with psilocybin in them. Animals would eat them, trip out, and not remember where the mushroom was. So it was a defense mechanism to stop predators or animals from coming back to eat them. So like that shit doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. And I guess we as people we try and rush shit a lot, and it's dangerous. Like if you look at us trying to fucking edit genome, edit genes of newborn babies or create babies. Like, I think it's called CRISPR. You can actually like edit the fucking, what is it called? Like the egg or the embryo to create, enhance certain aspects or get rid of certain aspects of the child before it's even born. And that shit's fucking crazy. So I think we try and rush things and it doesn't always work out for the best. We need to just try and, I guess, look at nature and try and replicate that to a certain degree, because I think rushing into things isn't always the best way to do it. I think a good example of that would be, you look at the nuclear weapons. Look what happened there. We rushed into that shit, and it, where the nuclear bombs went off, that hasn't recovered yet. Like, there's still fucking radiation there. That's pretty bad. So take a page out of nature's book, I reckon. I was earlier in the week before pools got shut down. I was swimming, right, and I had another one of my thoughts, another one of my crazy theories that I reckon might pay off. I was swimming with a group of people, like a swim squad, and there was probably seven of us, and we were all like following each other, doing the same sets. And it dawned on me, because if you've ever swum in a pool with a squad or something like that, you know that sitting on someone's toes is easier. They actually pull you through the water. It's not as it's nowhere near as hard as swimming by yourself when you're swimming on someone's toes. It's like fucking, what do you call it when you're behind drafting in like the Tour de France. So sorry. It's like drafting in the Tour de France. So if there was like, say, enough people of the same ability filling up the lane in the pool, so that it was literally like a continuous circle of people swimming, everyone was swimming, everyone essentially swimming on someone's toes, would mean there would be no one in the lead. And like, it would be like I'm going to call it the swimming pool paradox, but it'd be like a whirlpool. Eventually, like, they would just keep speeding up, wouldn't they? And it would just keep getting easier, because you would keep pulling the person behind you along, but you would also have someone in front of you pulling you along. No one's essentially leading the pack. Everyone's just getting pulled along. And I was like, damn, that would be cool. So if anyone wants to fund that experiment, you know where to find me. Towing the Line on Instagram. If you think any of your friends would want to fund that experiment, share this podcast and we can set it up once pools open back up, which will hopefully be Wednesday. Because I'm interested. I'm keen to find out if that would actually work. All right. A cool little fact or stat. Now, this could very well be deceptive or deceiving, but there's actually been, of my podcast, 15 downloads in the US. And I wonder if that's actual people living in the US. That, like, if it is, that's fucking amazing. I can't believe it. So if you're listening from the US, hello and welcome. Towing the Line. But it could very well be people using VPN and just putting themselves over there, and then me getting all excited about it. But it'd be cool. Like, it's cool to think that, my podcast has gone international. Never thought that would actually happen. So, yeah. Big day over at Towing the Line Studios. I'm very excited. I only realized that recently, so cool beans. I'm still like in shock that this is the 5th episode. That's crazy. I'm still fucking pumped that I've done this. All right. Another cool. So I promise you, I will eventually get into what today's topic is going to be based on. But I'm going to keep it a secret for a little bit longer. I'm going to get into another cool little thing that I'm going to try, and then I'll report back to you guys on how it goes. Or actually, 2 things. So first thing, I got a pair of Vivo barefoot shoes the other day. They had a great end of year 50% off special, and I was like, I've bought them before in the past, and I bought a size too big, and they were just flopping around, slapping the ground, and they were the most annoying shoes to wear ever. Like, don't get me wrong, they were probably great for my feet, but they were just slapping the ground, making noise, and I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I actually bought fucking 2 pairs because they were so cheap, and only wore 1 pair, so I've got a brand new pair of, I think, 49s at home that I would give to anyone, because anyone who has like a size 15, 14 foot, because I'm not going to wear them. So I bought a new pair, a size smaller, and I'm loving them. I'm wearing them right now. I've worn them all week, and I am very, very pleased with them. Caitlin got a pair as well. So I will report back to you on if my feet strengthen up and I'm able to actually run better, because since doing the Ironman, I've had a bit of issues with my toes. I think they've just like been sandwiched together, because I've been I was running in very tight shoes for a bit there. And the cycling shoes too, they're pretty tight. So my toes were getting a bit squished, and I was having some issues with my toenails and stuff. So hopefully my feet splay out a bit. I'm going to get back on the toe spreaders and do all that good stuff for my feet. But yeah, I'll report back to you on that. And the other thing that I have done is, I've actually done another few things. But anyway, this is the more important thing. I was listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman, I believe. And you could actually, if you want, go listen to it yourself, because they touch on it at the very beginning of the podcast. I'll find out exactly what episode it is so that it's not too hard to find. It's episode number, bear with me, 1683. So if you want to listen to that, that's absolutely fucking perfect. They touch on it like within the first 15 minutes. It's a way to improve sleep. So there's 3 supplements that he recommends taking: magnesium threonate, apigenin, and theanine. And apparently, a combination of these apigenin is in chamomile tea. Theanine like enhances brain activity, and magnesium threonate is supposed to penetrate the brain or blood-brain barrier wall. And it's like the other magnesium, I don't know what you want to call them. The other types of magnesium can't actually penetrate, whereas this one can. So it's supposed to get in there and help your brain kind of relax. And I think the theanine makes you have some pretty cool dreams. But the combination of these 3 is meant to help you sleep fantastically. So if that's even a word, well, it is now because I've said it. So I'm going to try. I've had to buy them from the US. I tried a few pharmacies and none of them sell them in their pure form. So I've had to buy them from the US. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I will have my supplements and I will be able to report back to you on how they go. I'm sure I'll have my Whoop to track it anyway. Wonderful. So that'll transpire in the next couple of weeks. Speaking of my Whoop, I've actually been, this week's been a big week in terms of strain. If you are familiar with Whoop, Monday was 17.8, Tuesday was 19.8. Why was it so high? I think I had a long ride and a run. Wednesday 18.4, Thursday 19.2, Friday was alright, 13.6. It was supposed to be bigger. I was supposed to hit the gym for a workout, but obviously lockdown prevented that from happening. Yesterday was 19, and today is so far a 17.6, but I've got another run to do this afternoon, which will bump it up to, I'm sure, around 19. And my recovery's all in the yellow, so not so good on that one. I definitely feel very tired this week. It's been a big week mentally, so I'm sure my sleep deficit's fucking big time not good. Yeah, my sleep debt is about an hour 20, which means, so you have an hour, like a sleep time you're supposed to get each night, and then what you actually get. And mine is averaging about an hour 20 less than what I should be getting. So that is not good for recovery. So hopefully this week I'm going to try and peg that shit back. Anyway, moving forward. So this week I want to try and touch on setting standards for yourself. And I want to kind of just have a conversation with myself. I want to, go through the pros and cons of it all, because it's not simple. It's not a simple answer. As a lot of things are that I've spoken about before on this podcast, it's never going to be a simple answer. Like motivation versus discipline. It's not simple. It's not just black and white, yes, no. So are setting standards for yourself good or are they bad? See, personally, I believe they are very important because I set standards for myself the way the way I present to other people, the way I talk to other people, and I guess with my training as well. And with anything I do, I have standards for myself where I believe I should be, where I should be at. And I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, those standards kind of come from a lot of different sources. So you can have standards for yourself that have been driven into you from a young age that aren't right, that aren't good standards. Like you might believe certain things that have been, hammered into you from such a young age that you think it's right, but it's, you're actually doing harm to yourself. That's where a lot of, I guess, like that's where you could say like eating disorders and stuff like that probably come from. Is seeing things and hearing things as a kid and then growing up and realizing that shit, that's, that's been sending me down a dark path, being forced to believe that, being skinny or being, looking a certain way is everything when it's not everything. Being healthy is everything. Being healthy and feeling good is everything. So I feel standards are good except for when they're bad, which, sorry, is a fucking tough debacle to be in. Anyway, so I'm going to give you an example of certain standards I set for myself. For me, I'm going to use training because that's what I fucking do most of the time, and that's where a lot of my standards are. So in terms of training, I'll touch on my, standards with friends and family as well in a sec. But so for training, my standards are I have to give everything in my sessions, whatever that session may be. I've learnt slowly that not every session has to be a race or a sprint session. Doesn't have to be like that. And having a coach has helped bring me back into line, and having training mentors has helped bring me into line with that too. So I'll always give everything to what that session and what that session's purpose is too. So today, for example, was meant to be a slow run, and it was slow, but with elevation. So it was more of a strength kind of run, and I gave everything to that run for its purpose. Whereas if it was a faster run, I would have gone faster and, given everything I could to that. I feel like none of that made sense. I'm going to try and make it simple. For me, my standard with training is I have to understand what the session's purpose is, and I have to give everything to achieve that session, like by its purpose, by its standard. So if it's a long, slow run, I have to make sure I go slow. If it's a fast run, I have to go fast. And I've struggled with that for a very long time. If it's a strength session, I have to do the strength. I can't change it into something else that I might want to do, because I struggle with that kind of shit. I struggle with, going slow when it's my standard. I feel like I have a tendency to always go fast. So I've had to adjust that. It's probably actually a good topic to go into. So my standard I used to think that I would have to do everything the Deadpool way, maximum effort. That would be the only way. And for me, maximum effort would just be blowing myself up. So it would just be give everything I've got in terms of heart rate and give everything I've got in terms of heart. So I'd go in there and just go hard until I was dead. And that was the only way I knew. Whereas since getting into the Ironman stuff and getting a coach, I have learnt that that's not the only way to get results. So like I was saying before, I've had to change to learn to run slower, because I would usually just, if it was a 20k run, I'd go and run that 20k as fast as I could. Whereas it's not about that. When I was in that last training block before my Ironman, I would have 20k runs at like 5:20 pace, which is like kind of slow. Like I could have done it quicker, but it's not the purpose. The purpose is to run slower, because that's what you're going to be doing when you're running in the Ironman. So that, for me, it took me a while to understand that my standards that I set for myself in that respect were wrong. I needed to adjust them. I needed to change and, make changes to them, because they were detrimental to me achieving my results. And I think that's the hardest part, is figuring out and realizing that some of the standards we've set for ourselves aren't beneficial. They take away from what we're trying to achieve. They pull us back. And I think that's one of the hardest things to try and realize. when we've, like, it's been drilled into us from day one that, you know, you need to go flat out, when in reality you don't. You need to kind of pull back. And I think for me that obviously came from being overweight and making excuses as a kid, and then overcorrecting to nothing's a good enough excuse. You have to give everything, empty the tank every single session. And that was like, that's never sustainable. And that's probably why I ended up with a few injuries, because I was just blowing up the whole time. So that's I guess one of the reasons why I think standards are important, but you've also got to understand the standard that you set for yourself, and you've got to realize whether it's helping you or whether it's being detrimental to you. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go over some notes. Another good way to look at it is, like, for me, another standard I set for myself in terms of training. I realized at the point or the path I was going down, I was getting off track. Another standard I set for myself with training is I don't miss a session. I just don't. It's not an option. Like yesterday, I wanted to miss a session, but I didn't, because I couldn't. I know the feeling of missing a session, and it sucks. So I'm not going to, put myself in that position. I'm going to do everything I can, unless obviously it's an extreme circumstance, or, for example, gyms are shut and you can't, or pools are shut and you can't physically swim. I don't want to miss a session because I hate it. So that's a standard I set for myself. But there's also a limit or a line with that standard that, like, what if I'm on the brink of an injury, which I faced last year? I didn't miss a session when my glutes started tightening up, my hips started tightening up. I never missed a session. Even that last run, I forced myself to do. I remember I got halfway through and I was hunched over and I was like, how the fuck am I going to get home from here? I finished the run, and then later that night, I realized how bad I had fucked up. And then that next day, couldn't get out of bed. So for me, my standard was flawed, because you have to miss a session. You have to slow down if you're fucked up. And I couldn't realize that. It took me getting injured to realize that my standard was flawed. So I had to adjust that, and I had to realize, okay, you need to try and, I guess, problem solve or analyze whether you actually need to miss it or whether you just want to miss it. And I think yesterday I knew that I was fine. There was no injuries. I was tired. Yes. All right, great. I've been tired before. It's not like I was fucking sick or on the brink of an injury or something. I was just tired, which is not, it's not the end of the world. Far out. You'll pick that back up. So I knew that my excuse to miss the session was just because I didn't want to do it. It was not because I needed to miss it or I needed a break. So I went and did it. And I think for me, I've had to make that adjustment. I've had to realize that, yes, there are going to be days where I should, peg it back, slow down, change the session or miss the session because my body needs a break. And there are going to be days where I don't want to do it. It's cold, it's windy, it's wet. I don't want to be out there in the rain riding, but I know that I have to do it. So, and if I don't have a good enough reason or I don't need that break, then I'm going to go and do it. And that's the standard I hold for myself. So I've had to adjust. I've had to flick that round, because like the other standard of always going 100%, this standard you can't sustain never missing a session. I remember there was a full year, or just over a year, a few years back, might have been 2018. I didn't miss a single day. I trained every single day for the year. And like, while I got through that, I probably could have achieved so much more if I, took a rest day every month or so, because my body wasn't able to recover. It wasn't getting that day where it'd be like, oh, thank God, let's rebuild some muscle, let's rebuild some shit. It was never getting that. It was constantly getting broken down. So I guess you've got to recognize standards and adjust them. What's another training standard that I set for myself? This one's a new one that I have brought in since getting injured, and it's the stretching and the recovery component. I guess this is with the help of my Whoop strap. Also, if you want a cheeky discount on Whoop, just flick me a message, or flick the Towing the Line Instagram a message, or my personal one. I don't give a shit on what, and I'll flick you a link, and I think it gets you like 10% off or something like that, and you get a free strap, which is cool. So Oh, I shouldn't have fucking said that because now I can't remember what I was talking about. Yes, monitoring recovery methods through Whoop. So this is a new standard I set for myself. I look at my Whoop and I check things like sleep, and I make sure that I'm getting adequate, recovery, which is part of the reason why I took full advantage of this magnesium complex or whatever the fuck you want to call it that I heard on Joe Rogan's podcast, because it's going to help me sleep better and in result get me more recovery. So that's another standard I've now set for myself, is I have to take active steps to recover, because otherwise it's not sustainable. I'm going to end up in the shit, which is not great. So they're the ones I can think of at the moment in terms of training. I'm not going to force myself to think of any more because you'll probably be listening to some dead air for a while. Anyway, now some standards I set for myself in my personal life. Now these have come through, I guess, experience and stuff like that, but I went through a stage, probably, it was a few years, and I'll actually talk about this. This is going to tie into one of the podcast episodes that's upcoming. I went through a stage where, I struggled a lot. It was probably a 5-year span. It sucked. And in that stage, I kind of just went battle stations and focused purely on myself and didn't really give back to people that were in my life. I didn't give back to the people that were in my life. I kind of, escaped into myself for a bit, and I was struggling, and I'll talk about this in a later episode, like a big episode, maybe 2, I don't know, but this is not the point of what I'm saying. I didn't give back to the people that were in my life. I didn't do anything like that, and now it's a standard. Like I wasn't really, I don't know, people would ask things of me, and I never really gave them the time. So I've tried to change that. That's a standard I now set for myself, is I have to help. If someone's in my life and they play a big part in my life, I will help them. Even someone I don't know. If someone messages me and asks me something, I will give them an honest, upfront, full answer. I'm not going to blow them off, because I know when I was coming up and when I was trying to do things, it was like I would ask people stuff, and if you got blown off, it fucking hurts. It kicks you back. It sends you miles behind where you want to be. Whereas if someone gives you a big, good answer and they actually give you advice, then you take that and you listen. Especially when you're younger, you look at the people above you, and you look at the people that you think are ahead of you, and you're like, oh man, I'd love to get advice off this person. And when they actually give you advice, it makes you feel fucking awesome. You feel on top of the world when you actually get advice from people that you look up to. So I went through a phase where I didn't really respond. If people sent me a message, I didn't really respond as good as I could have, or I would leave it and I would reply to a heap of messages at once and just give half-assed shit because I was like, I just got to get this out of the way. Whereas now I'll actually take my time and I'll be like, nah, I'm going to give this person the best response I can, because that's who I am, and that's the standard I set for myself. I try to carry that through in everything. So I try and give the best I can. I guess that's probably an overall standard I set for everywhere, is I want to give the best I can. And it's like, it feels good too. You don't feel like you're ripping people off. And I try and be, another standard is I try and be as honest as possible with people. I try and, open up and give them, I guess, open up to a certain degree, open myself up to a certain degree, and be completely honest with them. And you will be honest, you get that in return if you're open and honest to people. It's just the way, I guess, most people are built. So I guess that's another standard. Just be honest, because it goes a long way. People notice. Fucking hell. And if you put in that extra 5% for someone, they notice. They feel it. Because think about it. Do you notice when someone goes that little bit further for you and they help you that little bit extra than what they need to do? It's always a surprise. You notice it. Like this morning, a prime example, James and I were running. It was probably like, I don't know, 6:45 in the morning. It was like half dark still. We ran past this old lady's driveway, and she was standing in the middle of her driveway. And before we even saw her, she yells out, "Good morning." She was probably like 10, 15 meters away from us. Like, what? She didn't need to say that. we wouldn't have thought anything less of her if she didn't even acknowledge us. But she did. And we said it back and we were talking about it as we were running past. We were like, wow, that's fucking, she didn't need to say anything. That's insane. People notice when you go that little bit further than you need to for them. And I think that's massive. So another standard, just, I guess, go that little bit further, do that little bit more. It always helps. Same thing with training. If you give a little bit more each session, it adds up. It always adds up. It helps you in the long run. And you can't replicate that. You can't fake, you can fake it, but people also notice when you're faking it because it never lasts. If you're full of shit, if you're honest, I'm doing those little Dr. Evil. If you're honest and you give extra, people fucking notice because you never last. You're not there. You're not there for them in the long run. Whereas the real people, they will be there, and you can tell. You get good at seeing through the bullshit. So, yeah, I suppose that's what standards I set for myself. And now, if I'm gonna answer the question of are they good or are they bad? I think they are good. I think standards are fantastic to help you excel in your goals, in life, in general. I think they are one of the best things you can implement, but you need to be aware of, you need to be willing to learn. You need to open up your mind, and you need to be willing to take on criticism from yourself or other people, and whether you need to adapt or change those standards, because sometimes, as the examples I've given, they can be detrimental for you. Sorry, I was just having a bit of a drink. Those standards can be detrimental for achieving what you want to achieve. So I think oh man, what the fuck? I keep losing my brain waves today. It's annoying. So yeah, the standards are great, but they can be detrimental if you're not open to seeing ways to improve them or help yourself. So you need to constantly grow. You need to grow your standards. All right? You need to adapt them. The same way your body adapts to scenarios, the same way nature fucking adapts. You need to adapt your standards to situations in life, to different environments. You need to change them. They need to be able to mold with you as you grow as a person, as you learn as a person. And I guess as your environment changes, they need to change as well. Otherwise, they can be detrimental to you if you're not careful. So you got to take on advice of other people. You got to be wary. Got to open up that fucking mind and just pay attention, because yes, they can help you, but at the same time, they can crush you. Now I'm going to talk briefly, or not briefly, it's probably going to be a fucking 10-minute chat about how society's standards can impact you and impact, I guess, those around you. The standards that we adapt or adopt from society can be fucking rough, and they can a lot of the times they will negatively impact your life and how you kind of do things. I guess one of the biggest ones is body image and body image issues, and it's becoming a huge problem these days because society has set this standard by, I guess it's mainly through marketing and obviously money-making schemes of like selling products and stuff like that you're supposed to look a certain way. And like, I guess for girls it's skinny, and for guys it's, six-pack. And that standard that has been set for us, we haven't had a choice in it. That's a standard that's been laid out for us, is false. It's not right, and it's not always healthy. Like some people genetically disposed to having those attributes, and others aren't. And it's not fair for those people that don't have those genetics to try and uphold those standards, because they will end up killing themselves. They will end up putting themselves in a very dangerous situation to try and uphold those false standards that society has chosen for them. They haven't chosen them themselves, and they feel like they have to. They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice in doing that. So it's fucking rough. And like you probably noticed this with your friends and family too. Everyone has these standards that they try and uphold based on bullshit. It's not fair. That's one of my biggest pet peeves about filters and stuff on Instagram and like Snapchat and stuff like that. It's fucking ridiculous when you feel the need that if you want to post a picture of yourself or you want to, talk to your camera, you have to put this bullshit looking filter over your face because you feel like you don't look good enough without it. That's absolutely ridiculous. You look fine without it. It's just that society's told you don't, and it's a lie. And I think it's whack because I use the term society as if everyone is telling you that, but society is almost its own person. Because if you talk to the majority of people, they agree that society is making them feel like this. So I don't think anyone actually falls into the category of being part of society. It's just that society is telling everyone to feel this way, and I think that's insane. That it's not even a real person, it's not a thing. Sorry, I'm just writing that down because that's going to sound really good. Society isn't a real person. It's just this giant beast that has been created by people in the past, or marketing and big companies forcing us to kind of believe this way, believe that we have to look this way, we have to be this way, when that's not what's most important. What's most important is being healthy and feeling good. Because, if you look great and you feel like shit and you are not healthy, then your life's going to suck, bro. It's not going to be as good as you think it's going to be, because you'll be starving yourself or, killing yourself in the gym every single day for the rest of your life to look a certain way. And then you will eventually come to the point where your body's like, bro, you need to look after me. I can't do this anymore. And then you'll get hit with something that will take you out of action and force you to, I guess, rest and recover. So I think that's probably one of the biggest issues with society and its standards that it sets is, body image. That's a big one. Another big one that I'm noticing lately is the need, or people feeling like they have to kill themselves at work, like the hustle mentality, as in you got to work from, like Elon Musk, you got to work in the factory for fucking 12 hours, 16 hours a day, sleep there, get up and do the same. You got to pull 16-hour days. That's the only way you're going to be successful. Like, yes, there are people that can do that, and there are people that do that, and that they're not the standard. They're not normal people. Like guys like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they're not normal fucking people. They are outliers. They are the 1 in a fucking billion, 1 in 100 billion people. They're not normal. Like that's why they are where they are. That's why there's only a handful of them that you can name, because that they're built like that. You can't base yourself off people like that because it's just ridiculous. You need to base yourself off yourself. There's no way you can go out and set an expectation to uphold what fucking Bill Gates or Elon Musk does, because that's just, all I see happening when people do that is they're going to fail and they're going to feel bad and they're going to end up worse than where they started. I guess even saying that though, I've just realized that that's, you set yourself a goal really high. At least if you try and achieve it, you might not achieve it, but you'll still be better than where you started. So I suppose aiming to be like, or trying to achieve things like those guys is good, but you can never base your standards off someone like that. Because I don't think it's going to benefit you if you work 16-hour days trying to, hustle and be this mega billionaire. Then you're probably going to end up fucking half cooked, no sleep, malnourished, feeling like shit, and then you're going to lose all that work you put in because you're going to be forced to try and recover. So I think that's another bad or poor standard that society sets for everyone, is that hustle mentality of you have to work fucking stupid hours every day if you want to ever be successful. I just don't think that's I don't think it's sustainable. I guess I've said that a lot today. Hey, maybe I should call this being sustainable. I think a lot of people don't think of the long term. They think of the short term, and they think of how they can do things in the short term and how they can get things quickly and rush things. and a lot of the time they just burn out, and then, I've actually seen that a lot with a lot of people with their goals and looking at me and telling me, looking at what I do and being like, oh yeah, I've got this goal, that goal, this goal. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. And they're always very big goals, and you always see them go real hard at the start. And then, a year later, they're nowhere to be seen. They've just dropped right off and they disappear. I saw that a bit with my Ironman stuff. There was a few people that, said they were going to do an Ironman as well. They were like, oh yeah, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to do this. And they start, and they're there at the start, and they're pushing, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. So I don't even know where I was going with that, but I think a lot of people are too ambitious at the beginning, and they don't allow themselves the time to actually move towards that goal. They just rush it, and they don't achieve it because they've just blown themselves out at the start. So you got to think long term. You got to think sustained effort. You got to think a gradual increase. You got to think, like, if you're looking at a graph, you don't want it to spike at the start and then drop at the end. You want it to be a gradual increase across the whole horizon. There's a quote, I don't know it, but it basically says that you want to have a slow improvement across a long horizon, what is the bottom axis? So steady increase, a steady sustained increase forever is better than going super high at the start and then crashing below where you started. So I guess that's something to consider. If you want to set a high standard for yourself, then make sure you are sustained in your approach towards achieving it. Don't try and achieve it too quickly, because you will end up falling on your ass and it won't feel great. Won't feel great at all. I'm just reviewing my notes for this. I've touched on pretty much everything, except going back to the standards that you set for yourself. I think you have to be strict, but obviously lenient at the same time. So, like I said before, you have to adapt those standards, but you have to allow yourself some leniency. You can't be always on the standards. You can't always hold yourself up to them. Sometimes they're gonna fall by the wayside because other things come up, and you can't beat yourself up about it. If you're constantly beating yourself up about not upholding a certain standard, then it's going to feel worse, and you're not going to achieve it. You're actually going to go back. Sorry. You're actually going to go backwards. I think that's the same thing about complaining, but I'll touch on that in a sec. So yeah, if you beat yourself up about not upholding a certain standard, then you're going to go backwards, and it's not going to help anyone. You've got to just, all right, great, I didn't uphold it there. What can I learn? What can I take away from that? And then move on and, I guess adapt and change it, mold that standard to fit your circumstance. Touching on what I said before about complaining, I feel the same thing about complaining. Yes, it can make you feel good, but it's not something you want to be doing all the time, because if you're always complaining, then you're obviously in a mindset of, you're obviously not so much a victim mindset, but you're in a negative mindset if everything's always going bad and you're always complaining about it. You need to, yes, complain, great. How are you going to fix it? How are you going to move past it? How are you going to move through it? Because if you spend your life complaining, I'm trying to swallow off mic because I know you might be able to hear it and it sounds gross. I fucking hate hearing people's mouth noises when I'm listening to podcasts. I'm going to turn the gain down a bit so you can't hear everything that's happening. I hate hearing people's fucking swallow. It's disgusting. So if you spend your time fucking complaining, and you're obviously not getting better at it, you're not getting better at what you're complaining about because you're spending all the time complaining. So yes, I believe complaining is warranted, but I also think that you need to get it out of the way. Yes, all right, say like with Melbourne lockdown right now, you can complain all you fucking want, but it's not going to go away. This circumstance isn't going to change by you complaining. Unfortunately, I wish it could. I wish if everyone decided to complain together, then maybe we could fucking overrun it. But that's not the point. The point is, if you spend your time complaining and you spend these 5 days fucking complaining, then what you're going to come out of this and be worse than when you went in? If you okay, this is what it's going to be. How can I still achieve what I want to achieve while being in this, in this shit scenario? You're going to come out of the 5 days feeling productive, feeling good. Whereas if you don't do it and you spend the whole time complaining, you're going to come out feeling worse, and it's going to fucking set you back even more. So complaining is good, but at the same time, you need to try and move past it and adapt to the circumstances. So, I don't know if I've got any other things I want to say about. If I think of anything else, I'll fucking touch on it. In terms of the setting standards, but yeah, if I was to summarize it, I think standards are great. Standards are a great thing for you to have, but they need to be able to be molded. They need to be. You need to. Fuck. Okay, I'm gonna start again. I'm sorry. I appreciate you listening too. If you've made it this far through, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the people. I'm grateful for the fans I've got, if I've got any. I'm grateful for people that have listened. I'm grateful for my friends that are listening to this. I really am. It means a lot that you would actually take this much time out of your fucking day to listen to me dribble on this microphone. And listen to some of those noises of me fucking swallowing. I apologize. I'm really, really appreciative. So thank you guys. It actually means a lot. I think I've had 135 downloads in total, which is fucking, like, it may not seem like a big number, but if it's that many people, like if it's that many downloads an episode, that's an hour. Like, that's a lot of time that people have taken out of their days to listen to me talk nonsense or just speak my mind. So I am really, truly grateful. So anyway, moving on to what I was talking about that I'm trying to remember. I can't. Okay, yes, a summary. So if I was to answer the question simply, are standards good or are they bad? I think they are good, but you need to be able to adapt them. You need to be able to, I guess, realize where they're going to be when they're going to be detrimental to you achieving your goals, and you need to adapt them for the circumstances and the scenarios. You need to be willing to learn and change your standards to help you improve, rather than being stubborn and leave them the way they are to the point where they are detrimental to you achieving what you want to achieve. And if that's, like, I think that should be a takeaway. Just open your eyes and be mindful of your standards that you have for yourself, because sometimes they can actually hamper your progress. So if you're going to take anything away from this podcast, just like maybe write down. I don't really write stuff down, but write down the standards that you set for yourself and analyze them, and just be mindful over the next couple of weeks and see, where you can improve or where they might be hampering you and slowing you down, because it could help you massively. Anyway, moving on. I put out a question box this week, and I'm going to read those questions out and answer them. I haven't really read them properly, so these could be some interesting answers. I don't really know what I'm getting myself into, so bear with me right now. Story archive on the Instagram. Also, Cocoa Coast coconut water is on special at the moment. Bought plenty of it last night. All right, here we go. Let's see these questions. All right. Number 1, how did you transition to the healthy lifestyle when you were younger? So for me, it was hard because it took certain circumstances in my life to push me to the gym. And then once I got there, I was like, this is actually kind of nice. I started playing football, but I started playing football like under 10s, I think. And I was very lazy and didn't want to do anything. And it wasn't until I was probably like 16 or 17, maybe 15. Yeah, it was probably around 15 when I started going to the gym, and I was like, I actually like this. And then slowly, I just learnt and built and changed and evolved, and it got to the point where I am here, where I am today. I found myself constantly seeking, I guess, challenges and just pushing myself. And then I was playing football for a bit, and then I realized that I preferred the training aspect as opposed to the playing. And then I just went into that, and then, just slowly, here I am. So I think if you're transitioning into a healthy lifestyle when you're younger, don't launch into it too heavy. Like I was talking about before, don't set goals that are too high for yourself. Remember, you want a steady progress. You want to be able to sustain it. So I guess think of the goal you want to be. Think of where you want to be in like 10, 20 years. Think of, like, for me at the moment, I'm thinking of when I'm like 60, I want to still be able to do shit. So I'm trying to take steps to be able to still do stuff when I'm that age. So I guess don't don't be too short-sighted, and don't think, I'm going to do everything right now, because you'll end up hating it. So if you're younger, just think, okay, what can I do to slowly get to that healthier lifestyle? It might be, if you're starting from zero, I'll use that as an example. Go for a walk once, twice, 3 times a week. Start having healthier food, making healthier food choices. Trust me. At first, healthy, I'm using those Dr. Evil, healthy food choices don't taste as good as sugar, but your palate adapts and they start to taste better. So you get to a point where you look at, like for me, I love fruit. Apples, oranges, bananas, pears, nectarines, berries, they taste amazing. You get to the point where having a piece of fruit is the equivalent to eating a bag of lollies, because the sugar in the fruit is so nice. So start small, stick with it, be consistent, and you will get to where you want to be. Maybe set a goal for yourself. Maybe say, all right, next year I want to do a 10K fun run. Next year I want to do a 5K fun run. Set little goals for yourself along the way and just keep ticking the boxes. And eventually you will get to where you want to be. You've just got to be, you've got to think long term. You can't think short term, because you may not get it, and you might turn it to the point where you don't like it anymore. And then that's when it's going to be hard. If you despise exercise, you despise health, then that's when it's going to be really fucking hard to pull yourself out of. Next question. Hardest indoor conditioning session I've done. Okay, so the hardest by far, or the most traumatizing by far, was a testing conditioning set that I did. It was 100 cals on an Airdyne bike. Every minute, 3 dead ball thrusters, or 3 dead ball squat and press at 45 kilos. So this was fucked. And you started on the bike. You didn't start with the thrusters. So the first minute you just did a max effort on the Airdyne, and then you got off, did 3 thrusters, jumped back on, and then tried to finish it in that 2 minutes. So for me, it took me, I think it was like 2 minutes, no, it might have been 2:30 or something. So I hit like 60 cals in the first minute, jumped off, hit my thrusters, jumped back on, didn't quite get it, jumped off, hit thrusters, jumped back on, and finished it in a couple of seconds. But for me, that whacked me. That hit me for the rest of the day. It was less than 3 minutes, but I was fucking done forever. It hurt so much. It took my soul. I was lying on the ground. I didn't even break a sweat. My top wasn't covered in sweat afterwards. I just felt like I had died. And then I almost threw up. I didn't throw up, but I lay on the ground for probably half an hour until I could get my shit together to be able to move. So that was probably the hardest, because it's literally just 3 minutes of all out. You cannot hide. And if you don't go all out at the start on that first minute on the bike, it's pointless, because you're going to still feel shit at the end of that minute. So you may as well just go all out and try and get as much done as you can. And I promise you, it is not fun. And I don't know if I'll ever, ever, ever do that workout again, because fuck that. One of the other worst conditioning sets I've done, I think it would have been, I can't remember what it was like. I think it was every 5 minutes, or maybe it was like might have been every 4 or 3 minutes or something like that. It was just one at the gym. It was literally, it might have been 4 minutes on. Let's say it's 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off. And it was like 2Ks on the bike. Then it was 20 front rack walking lunges with 2 24 kilo kettlebells, and then max box jumps or max box step overs in remaining time. And I just remember every time I would do that, I would be sore for the whole week. It hurt. It sucked. And I think I'd do 5 rounds of it. So you'd be doing 100 front rack walking lunges with 24 kilo weights, and it fucking sucked so much, because you're in the hurt the whole time. So if you're looking for if you're looking for just a shit movement in general, front rack walking lunges will fuck you up big time, because you got to keep the weight above your chest, which blows your core out, and then you're trying to lunge, your glutes just cop it. That's just a shit movement in general. But that's another killer conditioning. And one of the ones I did recently was pretty bad. It was, was it? I did it during lockdown last year. I think it was, it was every 2 minutes. It might have been 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. And it was like, say, I think it might have been 15 or 12. I think it was 12 was the number. 12 cal ski. And then in remaining time, max dumbbell reverse lunges with 222 kilo dumbbells. And I wasn't allowed to stop until I got to 100 reverse dumbbell lunges. No, there was no time. So it might have been a 20 cal ski and then max dumbbell reverse lunges. And yeah, I wasn't allowed to stop until I got to 100. And I think I hit it in 2 sets. So I think I got 60 and 40. And I just remember being that hurt so much. I was sore for so long after that. And it was over relatively quick too, which sucked. So if you're looking for some conditioning sets, the later 2 are great. The first one, don't do that because it sucks. It sucks so much. So what would be your top 5 long run or trail running tips? Okay, so long run, I'll use long run because I haven't done a whole heap of trail running recently. Oh, actually, no, 2 bays was probably the hardest run I've ever done, and that was a trail run. So top 5 tips, I'm going to count them down on my hand because otherwise I'll forget. So number 1 would be hydration. You need to be hydrated. You need a drink, and it's electrolytes. Water's great, but in runs like that, electrolytes, just drink electrolytes. Like, water is just taking up fucking stomach in your space when you can just drink electrolytes or coconut water or something that is going to replenish those stores and help you not get cramps and not fucking bonk out. So hydration. Next is nutrition. That is another massive thing, and I think don't overcomplicate it. I used to overcomplicate my nutrition for fucking years. By that I mean gonna have dates, gonna have fucking bananas, gonna have Cliff Bars, gonna have all sorts of peanut butter fucking shit. No, don't overcomplicate it. If you're doing a race, in training, it's different. In training, take food that is palatable, nice, and it's going to be good for your digestive system until you get closer to your event and then start training with gels and stuff. But on race day, have fucking gels. Have gels, have Cliff Blocks, have stuff that's easy to eat and gets the job done, because you're in a fucking race, all right? You can deal with that shit for a race. It's not that hard. It's not going to be, it won't be as enjoyable as eating a couple of nice bits of fruit and all that kind of stuff, but fuck, it's a race. Just suck it up. You're racing for a reason. It's not meant to be easy. So suck it up and just keep it simple and get in what you need to get in. A third tip would be find a good pair of shoes, and it's going to take you a while to find a good set. But once you find a good pair of shoes, and stick with them. Don't be shy to spend a bit of money on a good pair of shoes, because if you're running in them for 100 Ks, more than 100 Ks, you're going to want them to be comfortable, and you're going to want them to do the job, and you're going to want them not to be not too tight, not too big. You want them to be perfect. So and you're going to be putting in training too, you'll be putting a lot of Ks in those shoes. So don't be shy on spending a bit of money on them, because they are the only thing between you and the ground. Number 4, don't underrate the benefit of long, slow runs. I've underrated that for years. I've avoided it for years because that's just one of the, I guess the standard I set for myself was all in, too fast, don't hold back. But I neglected the long, slow, the slow runs. That's when you build your base, and the base helps you hold a consistent pace for longer. Whereas if you don't have a base, you can go quick, but you'll hit a point where everything will stop, and then you'll be like, oh shit, what the fuck? I can't do this anymore. You need to build your base because you'll be able to go quicker for longer. So long, slow runs are imperative if you're training for long distance stuff. Trust me, time on the feet is way more beneficial than fucking getting the run done fast. You're better off if you're going for a Sunday run day and you're hitting 20 Ks, you are far better off hitting that 20 Ks at 5:20 pace than running it in an hour and a half and doing sub 5 minute Ks. Because if you're training for a long run, you're going to be running at 5:20 pace. You want to be comfortable at that. You don't want to be like, oh, you don't want to be finding out what that pace is like on the day. That's not going to help you at all. And the last tip I have would be, we can link this one back to, I don't know if I want to, there we go. I've got a good tip. Run hills. I learnt this one today from running with James, and he's been preaching this. I didn't learn this today. I've learnt this from James, and we did it this morning. Running hills builds running strength, and strength is huge. Like, don't be shy of the slow pace that comes with it. Running hills is so beneficial because you may not be running fast, but you're still putting in effort, and your legs gain so much from that kind of stuff. It's the same as riding. Riding hills is so beneficial for your strength as a rider. So run hills, and if you're doing trail running, then hills are going to be in there anyway, so you may as well run them. So what were those tips again? Hydration, nutrition, shoes, run hills, and run slow, and slow runs. They're my five tips for running long distances. Could I see myself getting into coaching later on? See, I don't know. I could. I might. But I don't know if I'd be, maybe not so much coaching, but I could help people with mindset and that kind of, I could see myself going in that direction. More of a mindset coach and a mental coach, because I feel like that's my strong suit. Like, I have a lot of theories, a lot of concepts, a lot of, advice in the mental realm, more so than the actual training. Like, I could get into that kind of stuff, but I enjoy the mental aspect of it a lot more. So that's probably a more likely case. How do you get your protein? Well, as a vegan, as I am vegan, I probably should do an episode on being vegan. Hey, I wonder how many people would listen to that. The downloads would probably drop to like fucking 3. Anyway, how do I get my protein? Well, as a vegan, you will all be fully aware of the fact that I am protein deficient. I don't have any protein. Nothing but meat and animal products give you protein. So I am wasting away as we speak. But if I was to give good examples of where you could find protein as a vegan, it's in everything. So yes, I have tofu, I have beans, I have, the big ones. I fucking eat a shitload of hummus, so that's got to be a lot of protein. But protein's in so many things, and there are studies out there. I don't know if any of you listen to the Plant Proof podcast, but he's touched on it quite a few times. You get enough protein from just eating enough food in a day. Like, you don't need to go and find it. But for me, I will give examples for the purpose of the exercise. I have a lot of tofu. I have beans, lentils, fucking, what do you want to call it? Hummus. Then I do have protein on my oats as well. I get it through a vast source of different things. So I'm not worried about being deficient in protein. And as we all know, protein's good for gains. So pump that shit. But yeah, I don't know what episode it is, but Simon Hill on a Plant Proof podcast covers it off. It's fucking, protein is abundant in a plant-based diet. What differences have you felt being fully vegan compared to before with training? Well, I didn't plan that because I'm reading these questions blind. So the differences I've felt. So I was vegetarian for like 3 years before being fully vegan, and initially when I went to vegetarian, my recovery was insane. So going from vegetarian to vegan, the differences weren't insane, but it wasn't until a bit later, it wasn't until I had adopted the vegan diet for a couple of months where I was like, holy shit, like I feel really good. I feel just energetic and sustained energy too. I didn't have obviously the biggest thing, you don't feel shit in your guts. You don't feel like, for me, when I was eating meat, it felt like it was sitting in there for ages. And I was like, oh, this is disgusting. But on the plant-based diet, that doesn't happen. Same with when you eat like pasta and stuff. It doesn't sit in you. It doesn't make you feel fucking shit. It's not there. It's you feel good, and I guess you process your food better, and you have a better sustained energy. And like for me, I do train a lot. I do a lot of things. I don't feel shit. I feel great. It's like, yeah, I get tired, but I feel fantastic on it. So I think energy is one of the biggest things. Energy, and obviously you feel better morally. Like I know I do. I feel like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but I feel like I'm sitting on a high chair. I'm riding my high horse, and the horse loves me because I'm vegan. So you feel better as a person too. So, all positives. But I guess I'm gonna be all positive about it because that's what I do, and I've chosen this. And another tip to that, I'm never gonna go back. Like I cannot. There's not, unless someone gives me a fucking undeniable reason to stop being vegan and stop eating a plant-based diet, I'm never going to change. And I reckon the odds of that happening are very, very slim. And last question. Oh, can I still have a rip at a literal before it melts episode? I should do that, hey. I should get a cone, an ice cream, and I'll find a good topic, and I will buy an ice cream and I will do a before it melts. Maybe I might save it until, because if this podcast actually gets good at some point and people start listening, then I might start videoing it and set up a bit of a video feed, because I reckon a before it melts segment would be great on video, or I could just video that. So yes, I will definitely do a before it melts episode, because I feel like that would be entertaining, especially if I don't make it and it melts and falls off and I don't get to eat the ice cream. And lucky last, how have you been able to maintain the cuteness? So the picture I put up for the question was me as a young lad with big buck teeth. I have sustained the cuteness by obviously eating my vegetables. I think that's just the most fitting response I can give at the moment. I ate my vegetables all the way through life, and now all I eat is my vegetables. So if you really want to sustain cuteness, eat your vegetables. But on a serious note, I'm not that cute. I'm, maybe in the right lighting, but most of the time I'm a bit of a gremlin. But yeah, so I think I'm about to wrap this motherfucker up. But another episode in the bank. If you did like it, please share with your mates, and if you feel like it, chuck a comment on the old Apple Podcasts. Like, that always goes a long way. But like I said before, I really appreciate every single one of you who listens to this. You get noticed. I don't know who you are. I know who a few of you are, but I don't know who all of you are. But you definitely get noticed. And if you think of anything you want me to talk about or touch on or speak about on this podcast, then flick me a message. I will definitely write it down, because I'm always looking for topics to tick off. Like I said, they don't hit me until midway through the week, and this one was one of those ones that just came out of nowhere. But please write in. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. I will continue to do this because it's making me feel good, regardless of the listeners out there. But I really do appreciate every single one of you. What was I? There was something else I was going to touch on. Hey, I just can't remember what it was. I keep the questions coming. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. I do plan on doing a guest episode soon, but I reckon I'll give myself maybe two more practice runs, and then I'll have a guest on, because what's this, number 5? Yeah, sick. Anyway, that is enough from me. I'm going to wrap this up, save it, and set it to upload automatically, because you can do that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, wonderful night, whenever you listen to this. And I'll chat to you all next week. Yeah.